Hello class. In this video we're going to be learning how to write a REST API using Deno. And we're going to go all the way from the basic, set up a server and then consume some user input and then show some data, and up to organizing our file structure and organizing our routes using a web framework and also connecting to a database. So we're going to cover all of what's related to a REST API. Now, if you're not familiar with Deno, I suggest you go and do the video I did before this one, where we covered the basics of Deno, and that should get you up to speed. Now, so we're going to be using a web framework, which is a bit more sophisticated than we did last time, and also we're going to be using an ORM to access the database. So yeah, enough of the chit chat, and let's actually get to the code. All right, so I have my terminal open, so I'm going to pan over to it. I'm going to go to my code directory, and here I'm going to create a new directory. So make and I'll call this Deno-API, cd into it, and here I'll do code dot to open VS Code in there, make this bigger, and here I'll create an entry file. I'll call this server.ts, and here we need to set up our server. So I'm actually straight away going to use this web framework. So in Deno land, go to third-party modules and search for Oak. And scroll down, it's this one with the most stars. I don't know why it doesn't sort them by stars. So scroll down and let's grab this block of code and copy that and paste that here. So Oak basically is kind of like Express in Node, although it's more similar to Koa, but it's really easy to get going with, and you'll see here. So basically what we do here, we grab application from the framework and we create a new application. And then we create this kind of a global route. It's like in a way that's like a middleware, but it's actually a route. So any route that we hit is going to return to us hello world. And I'm actually going to add to it, concatenate like a new line so that it shows properly. And here we just start our server on port 8000. So I'm going to create actually a settings file so that VS Code recognizes Deno stuff. So here we'll say .vscode/settings.json. And here I'll open the JSON and I'll have the Deno.enable and the value is true. So here I think if I close it and open it again, there we go. So there's no red squiggly lines. All right, so let's run our server. So back to the terminal, in this directory, I'll say Deno run, and we need the allow net flag. So --allow-net server.ts and hit enter. And it's actually already running. So if I open another terminal window and run curl localhost 8000 and hit enter, there we go, we get hello world. So our server is actually running and it's using the web framework Oak. So let's start to set up our API routes. For this, we're going to need the router. So I'm going to import router from Oak. And here underneath app, we'll say const router equals new router, like so. So I'm going to remove this thing from here and I'm going to add a new route. So here I'll say router.get, and this will be to /API. And this will be kind of like the same that we removed, but this will be a specific route and it's going to be like just a test route. And our handlers take a context, which is of type route, router context, and now it's going to import it. And now we do an arrow function like this. And here we simply say context.response. Response rather, not respond, dot body equals, and I'm gonna return an object with a key of message that says hello world, like this. And now we need to use our router for our app to actually listen on those routes. So here we'll say app.use and we'll pass it the router, but we'll call router.routes as a function like this. And we also need to duplicate this line, and we also need to use allowed methods. Allowed methods like this. And now let's save. And actually I'm going to add a console log message here to make it clear when our server is started to run. And I'm actually going to make this port into a variable. So I'm put it up here, say const port equals, I'm going to use 5000. I'm used to that. You can use 8000. It doesn't make a difference. So here I'll do backticks and say server up on http://localhost. And here I'll do a curly braces and concatenate port. Now let's save. Let's stop our server and start it again. Now we should, we do get that console log message. And here we'll say curl localhost 5000/API, and we hit enter, and we indeed get our message hello world JSON object. So our test route is indeed working. So let's start to create some CRUD routes. So for now, I'm going to create some fake data here. So I'll say const, and let's say our app is going to have posts, which are just some text posted by some users. So here we'll say const posts equals, and it's going to be an array of objects. And the first one is going to have a username. Let's say this is John, and it's going to have a body. And John says, hello, everyone. And I'm just going to duplicate this one more time. And this will be by Jane. And Jane will say maybe hello, John, because she posted after. So here we'll have our first route, our first API route. Well, technically second we have this, but whatever. So router.get/API/posts. And this needs to return all the posts. So here we'll take our context. And we can actually destructure straight away from the context stuff. So we'll need response. And we can still give it a type like this. And this will be, not context, sorry. Router, router context. I don't know why I'm not getting autocomplete here. So we'll do an arrow. And here we can simply say response.body equals posts. And now this will return all of the posts. So let's test this. I'm going to open Insomnia because I know we're going to need to we're going to need a more sophisticated HTTP client. So let's pan over to Insomnia. And here I'll create a new request. Let's call this read because we already have that route. And this will go to http://localhost:5000/API/posts. And let's run that. Okay, actually I needed to restart my server. So this would be a good time to use Deno. So let's say Deno run --allow net and say server.ts and hit enter. So our server is running, and now when we run this, there we go, we get all of our posts that we have in our fake database. So let's create a post route to actually post the data. So underneath here, I'll say router.post, and this will be to /API/posts as well. And this will actually take the request object as well and response from that router context. Oops. And here we'll do our arrow function. And now we need to extract some input from our body, from our request body. So here we can say const body equals, and to get our request body, we'll say await request dot body as a function dot value like this. And we need to make this an async handler so that we can use await. And here, actually, we have a body as well inside of our request. So here we can actually straight away destructure the username and the body that we get from the request. And here we can simply say posts.push, and we push a new post with this username and this body as well. And let's return it as well. So we'll say response.body equals an object with this username and this body as well. So let's save. And now we have Deno. Our server is automatically restarted, so we can go here. Let's create a new request, and this will be create, and this will be a post. And let's create it. I'm actually going to go back and copy the URL. Let's paste it here, and this will have a body, a JSON body, and here we'll have a username. And let's say John posted again, so let's put John, and the body will be he's saying hello back to Jane, so hello Jane. And now let's hit Control Enter, and now it says 200 okay, so it should be created. And we can check by running the read again, and let's run that. And there we go, we indeed have our new post added to the fake data that we have set up. So that's the create and the read endpoints working already. One thing that we can start to do is we can start to clean up the structure, because obviously we don't want to write all of our routes in the server.ts file. So I'm actually going to cut these two routes, not these two, the posts routes. So cut them out, and let's create a new file under directory of routes. So routes.posts.ts, and here let's paste them. And here we need to create another router here as well. So actually I'm going to grab the import statement from here. So all of that, grab that, copy, paste it here. We don't need application, we only need router and router context. And here at the bottom, actually we need to create the router. So here we'll say const router equals new router. And here at the bottom, we can say export default router. Let's save. Actually, we need to get our posts as well. So let's cut the posts from here. Let's save and then paste them up here and save this. So no errors. Let's go back to our server and import those routes. So here at the top, actually a bit underneath, let's say import posts routes, routes from the same directory routes/posts.ts. And now we need to use these routes as well. So we can say, well, technically this is a router. So let's rename this to posts router, because here we need to say app.use posts router.routes like this as a function, and let's save. And now everything should work the same. So if I hit enter here, we get that data, and of course that new post was removed. The create as well works, and if I run the read again, that post was created. So that's cool. So now we refactored our routes to the posts thing, the file. One thing that's not clean is that we don't want to keep repeating this, as all of these posts routes are actually prefixed under /API/posts. We can actually just cut that and replace that with just a slash, and this as well, and save. And if we go back to our server, here where we use our post routes, we can just, before the routes, let's chain dot prefix, and inside of here we pass it that /API/posts. And now all of the routes inside of the posts will be prefixed that, and whatever you add here will be added on top of that. To verify, we can go back and run read, and it's actually indeed still working. So that's cool. Now the next thing that we can do is to actually set up a connection to a database so that our data is persisted, and when we restart our server, it doesn't actually just delete all of the data. Now I already have Postgres SQL installed on my machine. If you want to use MySQL, you can as well. This ORM is agnostic to anything, to any database system. So let's go back to Deno land, and let's go to third-party modules and search for Deno, if I can type DB, and it's this one right here. And that's a cool logo, the database on the back of the dinosaur. So here it shows us an example on how to set up a database connection. So let's I'm actually gonna copy up to here. So these two for now, and let's go to our server, and here at the top, paste that and move this a bit down. And here, so we're setting up our database connection. We're just grabbing data types, database, and model from the actual library or framework. And here we set up our database connection, and it's by default already set up to connect to a Postgres database. So that's fine for me. Here for the host, I'm going to replace that with localhost because I'm connected to my current machine. And my username is actually Postgres, and my password is set up to be root. And the database, actually I need to create a database. I'll create a database called Deno_API. Be careful, thing, dash, doesn't actually work in SQL. It has to be underscore, so yeah. And here I'm actually going to open Postgres. I'm going to clear this. I'm actually going to close this, and oh, I wanted to close it. Open a new tab. And here I'm going to open my pSQL tool and use my user. I'm going to use my password. I'm going to create a new database. So I'll say create database. I'll call it Deno_API, put a semicolon and hit enter. And now I'll connect to it. Deno_API. And now I'm actually connected to it, and I can like list the tables, which of course there isn't any table right now. So let's create a table for the posts. So basically what this table is going to have just the username and the the body, and also we're going to have a UUID, so we don't actually use the actual ID. So here let's grab this data model, and actually let's grab everything from this class definition down to the sync call. And let's go back, and so underneath this database, let's paste that. So what this is, basically we're creating a new database model. And our model, let's rename it to post. And here we have static table, which defines the name of the table, which I'm going to call posts. And here we have timestamps set to true, which will let the ORM create a created at and updated at for every record in the database. And here we have the fields for our data model. So we're going to have the ID, so I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm going to remove this flight duration, and I'm going to rename the departure to username, and rename the destination to, body. So that's what we need. As the defaults, we're not going to have any defaults yet, so I'm going to keep this as an empty object. And DB link, we passed out all of our DB models. For now, we just have one model, and so here we'll say post instead of flight. And here we say await DB sync, which what it does is it's going to create the database tables based on our models. Now be careful, if you set drop to true, each time you run sync, if your schema changes, it's going to drop all the tables and create them again, which will drop your data. Right now we have no data, so I don't care about it. So I'm going to leave it as it is. So I'll save, and let's now go, Let's go here. Actually, our server already restarted. So if we check, I'm going to do \d. Now we actually get a post table. And if I describe that post table, we actually get an ID, a username, a body, and exactly the fields that we wanted. So that's cool. Actually, one thing that I realized that I made a mistake, I need to change. The username and the body shouldn't be nullable. I mean, of course, this application is not that type safe or like not production ready, but I'm just going to change that just to show you. So here actually there's a little trick. If you make this into an object and say type, and by the way, I forgot to mention this ORM, if you use the SQLize, you're going to feel right at home. It's very similar to that. So here if we give a type, technically we can use another property called allow null, and we set it to either false or true. But when you use your type as an object like this, it automatically sets allow null to false, so it's not nullable. So here let's do the same for body, so type, and close the object here. And now let's save, which should rerun our server, and it does. And now if I describe post again, now our username and our body are not nullable. So that's cool. Let's actually start to populate this post table. Because right now if we do select, why am I not typing? Okay, something happened to my, oh, okay, now it's typing. That's strange. All right, if I select all the data from posts and I run that, of course we have no data yet. So let's work on that. But actually, before we do that, let's refactor this because we don't want our data model to be inside the server. So I'm going to cut the posts model, and I'm going to create a new folder or a new file inside a folder called models. And the file will be post.ts. And let's paste that model. And let's go back to our server. And let's copy this import statement and paste that at the top. We're not going to need, we're not going to need database. We're going to need both data models, data types and model. And here, let's export default post. Save that. And let's go back to our server. I'm going to move this code where we set up our database connection to a separate file. So I'm going to copy these. Let's just call this db.ts. And let's paste that. Of course, we don't need the post router. Don't know why I copied that. We only need database, so I'm going to remove this and remove model. And here, let's export default DB. All right, so now in our server, we just need to import the database from that file. So I'm going to remove this, and here I'll remove this. And we're going to have another relative import here. We'll say import DB from same directory, db.ts. And actually, this db link call should be in the dbts as well. So here, db link post, and we need to import that data model. So import post from the same directory /models/post.ts. So save that, go back to the server. Here we can do the same. I'm going to remove this db sync call to the bottom. So up here, and before that we're going to do a console log, or actually after that. So cut that and go underneath here. And here we'll console log and say database connected like this. So save that. Now everything should work the same. If we check our terminal, there we go. We get database connected and we get server up and running on localhost 5000. So that's cool. Now let's go back to our post routes, and here let's actually use the post model to create the data on the database. So here let's actually delete this posts array. And let's import our post model. So import post from, we go back one level to models/post. And now inside of the get here, so we're gonna actually use this model to fetch the data from the database. Let's surround this with a try catch block in case, you know, the connection fails or any error happens. So if an error happens, we're just gonna console log the error, and we're gonna say response.body equals error, something went wrong. Oops, wrong. Why is it so difficult to spell wrong? And here let's set a status code, so response.status, and we set the status code to 500. And here response body equals post, let's cut that and paste this here. And let's actually get these posts. So we'll say const posts equals wait post dot, and we're gonna use a method called all. I'm actually not getting autocomplete because this should be post.ts. So here we'll say post.all, which does exactly that, gets all the posts. And let's make this an async handler so that we can use await. So this should on its own should work, but let's edit this as well, because otherwise there's an error here. So for the post, we do the same. We get these values from the body, but let's wrap all of this in a try catch block. So put that inside and catch an error. And here, let's actually copy the same code from here. If there's an error, we just do that. And here, instead of pushing to the array, let's actually create a post object. So here we'll say this const post equals await post dot post dot create, like this, which will create a database record and return it to this variable. And here we'll say response.body equals post. So let's save that and let's go back to Insomnia. So here if we're on read, actually gets the same data. That's strange. Did it not? Okay, I'm just gonna exit out of this and run it again just in case. All right, let's run this. All right, cool. We get an empty array because we don't actually have any posts on the database. So here in the create, let's run this. There we go. We actually get a record from the database with an ID and a created at and an updated at. And if we go back to our terminal and if we actually run that select from posts, there we go. We get actually that post was persisted in the database. So now we're actually persisting stuff to the database. We can edit the post model and add the UUID on top of it, because that's the field that we want to fetch the posts by. So here underneath the ID, we're going to add another field, UUID, and this will have a type of datatypes.uuid. And we're going to have in the defaults, we're going to set the value of it. And for this, we're going to use the UUID helper from the standard library. So if we go back to the standard library, here we have a utility for UUID. So right here, let's copy this up to here. And let's go back to our code, paste that. And here, this v4.generate, let's copy that and then paste that here and remove that from there. And this should work exactly this, not exactly the same. This should generate a UUID. So now if we go back to our terminal, we'll see that our app started again. And if we describe posts, actually, did it restart? For some reason, it's not actually. Oh, okay. All right. So now let's check our posts. Okay, so we get UUID. Don't know why the default value is actually set to an actual generated UUID, but I think it should work. So if okay, let me quit out of that. If we do select data, actually I forgot we don't have any data. Let's create a new row. So if I run this again, there we go, we get a UUID. And if we look here, we get that, and that's actually a different UUID to the one that was created up here. Actually, I realized that was a mistake. I shouldn't have used v4 generate here to generate UUID in defaults, because this will always be the same value indeed. So a simple solution for this is to not use the defaults, but instead, once you create the model, you actually give it a UUID there. So if we remove that import and let's go back, so save that and go back to posts, and here import v4, actually import this as UUID. And so here in the post where you create a post down here, we'll say UUID is UUID as a function like that. Or actually this is UUID.generate, and save that. And now let's actually, let me clear this out. And let's make sure that our server has restarted and we have no data. So select from posts and run that. Actually, we do have data. So for some reason, my server is not restarting. Deno is kind of broken, I think. Or maybe just on my machine. All right, cool. So now it removed all the posts. So if I go back to Insomnia, hit enter. So now it creates that post. We see that UID ends with 8B0. And now let's say Jane wanted to post hello John. Hit enter. And now that's 701. So that's a different UUID. All right, so that problem is solved. So let's create the rest of the CRUD routes. I'm going to put some comments. So this is getting all the posts. So this is read. And this is creating one post. So that's create. So create. And we need to also create a couple more. So we need update. And we need delete. And also we need the one where you find just one post, which I like to call find. And let's actually start with that because that's the easiest one. So this will be router.get. And we'll get colon UUID, which means that this is a URL parameter. And here we'll have an async resolver. And here let's destructure request response from. Actually, we don't need request. Realized we this is different to express. We need params, which has the parameters. And this is of type router context. We do our arrow function. And let's do our try catch block. And here we'll say const post equals await post dot where, and this is where UUID is equal to params dot UUID dot first. If you've worked with Laravel and you worked with Eloquent, this ORM actually has, when you fetch data, has syntax similar to a bit to Eloquent in my mind. So here we need to actually do a check if the post doesn't exist. So we'll say if not post. We'll say response.body equals, and we'll do an object, and this will have post, and this will say post not found. And we need to also set the status code to 400 or 404 rather. And here we need to say return, otherwise it's going to continue with the code block. And here we'll say response.body equals post. Oops. Post. And let's do our catch block as well. So if there's an error, I'm actually gonna do the same. There's probably a better way of like wrapping this with a async handler because the catch blocks are all the same, but for now I'm okay with it. And I'm actually gonna write the other ones before we test anything. So I'm gonna copy all of that and paste it underneath update because we need to do the same. We need to fetch it and check if it's there. And then if it's there, we need to actually update it. So actually here we do need the request. So let's do request here. And let's get the input from the request. We'll say const username and body equal await request request dot body as a function dot value like that. And here if our post is found, we need to say post dot username equals username and post dot body equals body, and then we need to run await post dot update like this, and now we just return it. So let's save, let's test these two. So let's go back. So if we run read, we get these two posts. Let's say we want to edit Jane's post. So let's grab that UID. Let's say we want to actually read it first, or like get it. So let's create a new request and call this, what is it, find, and this will find http colon / localhost 5000 / API. I don't know, I didn't autocomplete / API / posts, and then you put that UID, control enter. Okay, nobody was returned. And is that because the data was reset? No. Yeah, the server is not restarting. I need to check why Deno is not running. Okay, I just realized actually that post will not exist because it's gonna delete our data again because it's syncing. One thing that we need to do, we can do, I'm gonna remove the drop true here because we're not changing the schema, so we don't need to drop the tables and create them again. So now actually if we rerun our server, it should never delete our data. So let's go to the create and hit enter here. And I'm gonna create the John one as well, called, and he's saying hello Jane. And now in the read, we run read, we get these two. So we want to edit this first one, we grab the UUID. Actually, we want to find it first, so we go here, space that and run it. Okay, we get internal server error. And for some reason the error is not console logged here. Was I not console logging the error? Huh. Oh, sorry. I should have changed this to put, because this is the update. There's a conflict between the two routes. Alright, so this, I think that was the problem. So I'm going to rerun my server. And now if we go here, so the data should not have changed. That's cool, it didn't. And now if I run this, there we go, we get that post. And can I actually duplicate this? Oh, that's cool, I can. So let's rename this to update. And now it's going to the same place, but of course now it's a put request. And now let's give it a JSON body. So the username will stay as Jane. And I'll change the body to, let's just say edited post. And run that. All right, we get server error. So column updated at of relation post does not exist. So this is a problem that I ran across with this library, which is very strange. And I actually created an issue on the GitHub. I hope they address it. The solution to this is actually if you go to your post model and you click on model, control click, and search here for updated at, and go actually to this one. Don't know why it's actually updated at like that. Let's rename it with an underscore, updated at like that. So save that. And now if we rerun the server, that error shouldn't happen. So now if I go and update this, cool, it's actually updated and it's saying edited post. If I go to read and hit enter, now we get Jane edited post. So that's working. Now, of course, the solution where I edited the library file is not a perfect solution, but hopefully in the future they will fix it. So that's working. One thing that remains is the delete route. So let's grab the find again. So copy this and then paste it there. And here, let's change the method to delete. And here where we get the post, after we check if it's there, we just need to say await post dot delete. And of course, the response will not be the post because that post doesn't exist. Response will be an object with a message that says, let's say post deleted successfully. Let's save that. And I'm not running Deno because it's buggy, so I need to restart my server. It's buggy for me, maybe it's working for you. So here, let's duplicate the find and let's call this delete, create that, and change the HTTP method to delete, run this. And now we get post deleted successfully. And if we go to read, we hit enter, and that post indeed has been deleted. So that's cool. So our CRUD routes are complete. All of them are written. So that's cool. One little optimization that I want to do is that, let's say now you want to create a get repo and push this to a get repo. It's a bad practice that if we go to our DB, our database credentials are written inside this file that will be pushed to the repo. So these credentials should be in the as environment variables that would be not pushed to the repo and are different depending on the environment. So for this, I'm going to use .env, which is something that you might be familiar with from Node.js. So let's search for .env. It's this one with the most stars. So here it's showing us an example of how we can use an env variables. So let's grab, let's actually grab this, this import statement, and let's go to our server. Actually, I'm going to do it from the database because this is going to execute before anything else here as well. So I'm going to remove this search. So here I'll paste the import, and we need to run the config. Actually, we need to create the env file first. So let's do a new file. I say .env. And what I'm going to create is these credentials. So here, let's say db underscore, we need? So we need the host, username, password, and yeah. So the host, so db host will have localhost, and we need db username, and this will be for me Postgres, and we need db password. So root, what else did we have? yeah, the database, so db underscore database, and this will be Deno underscore API. And I'm actually gonna as well use dialect, because you might be using MySQL, or you might be using a different dialect on different environments. So here I'll say db dialect, and I'll call this postgres. So let's save. Now to access these environment variables, we need, so where were we? In the db, where we call we need to call config, and also there's you can pass it some configuration. Okay, I'm not getting autocomplete, so I forgot what the option was. So we can check here. Yeah, it's this export. So we need to set export to true so that it adds our environment variables to the global Deno object. So here, let's say export, and this is to true. Oh, I wasn't getting autocomplete because you hadn't downloaded the library yet. Okay, makes sense. So now if we save, and now we're gonna have access to those variables inside of a global object. So actually I'm gonna run the code so that I'm gonna get autocomplete for that. So it downloads the library. All right, that's cool. So now here for host, we can say deno.env.get, and what we need to get is the db host, so db underscore host. Now this will error because it's saying this can be undefined. So we can solve that by adding an exclamation mark here that says that this is actually required and it's going to be there. So let's copy this and paste it here and change this to db username, paste it here as well, change this to db password, and here in the database, remove that and change this to db database. Here as well actually, and this will be db dialect, remove this comma. Okay, actually remove this exclamation mark, or maybe not. Actually we can make it in let's make this into an object and then say dialect and then pass that in and then do the exclamation mark, and that should solve it. Actually still complaining, string is not assignable. Okay, what if I replace this with just Postgres? Okay, so if well, that's a string. All right, so I'm gonna have to investigate that, and yeah, for now I'm just gonna leave it as it is. Maybe it's an enum and it's just expecting a value out of a couple of values. All right, so I'm gonna save that, and this should actually work the same. I'm gonna console log, so it's console log deno.env.get and get the db host just to make sure that's actually working. So I'm gonna stop the server. And here actually saying permission denied because we need the allow env file. So we'll say allow --allow -env and hit enter. And let's look at that. All right, so read access to the. Oh, we need allow read as well. So we need both allow env. Actually, do we need allow env? I'm just gonna try with allow read. Yeah, we need both. All right, so allow read and allow env. So let's run that. All right, so I get localhost. So we're accessing the database, sorry, not the database, the environment variables properly. So we get database connected and everything should work the same. So if I run read, in fact, it works the same. So that's cool. That's now we're using the environment variables so that now if we actually exit out of this and we create this, make this into a get repo. So get init, and let's create a get ignore, and let's go to the get ignore. Here we can ignore the .env and save. Now our environment variables, our crucial secret credentials, will not actually be pushed to the get repo. So that's now our structure is set up properly in a scalable and safe way that we can expand on it. So yeah, that's it for this REST API. Of course, this is not something that I would deploy. This is mission validation, missing so many things, but this is just me showing you how to use Oak as a web framework and set up an API, and also DenoDB, and use that to connect to your database and perform operations on that. So please do like this video and subscribe. And yeah, I hope you learned something from this, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.